we can adjust the thing. Welcome, welcome one and all. We're about to get started shortly, but first, we're going to get through some preliminary matters. Welcome, welcome everybody to today's live. Let's see if I can find something we can jump to. Kimar, Wagwan. Big up yourself, same way. As you know, I always make sure I bring enough pertinent information to, stimulate the mind, stimulate the brain. Well, say after I put on the shirt, I realize I did step on it, but so it goes sometimes. Sometimes you have to super and sometimes you have to regular. Which you try not to be regular too often, But sometimes the vibration needs to come down to a level to be able to interact properly. So today we're going to talk about something a little bit deep, something a little bit relevant, somewhat just a little bit related to the politics thing. But it is not about a side, it is not about a party, We're just gonna deep dive a little bit into some matters that people are still, they're not aware of. So we have to make sure we bring people up to speed so that we can help to raise the vibration just a little bit more to spark some change. So today's topic is gonna jump back on something that we talked about previously, but a lot of people did not realize what we were talking about at the time and why we were talking about it. So it is gonna come full circle. For some people who have been a part of the page, who have been following the videos, who have been taking notes, who have seen the progress and overstand some of the things that I've been talking about from early, now you start to see how relevant it is and why we needed to do certain things first before we go head first into other things. You see? So we're gonna get there. Little by little, we're gonna get there. So we're gonna get into it. TikTok police, lawful, always. Up, up, up. We are about to get started. So we're gonna change up the time frame. We're gonna change up the time frame for the lives so that we don't fall into the trap of some of these agents that love to report the live because they don't like the information that I'm sharing. But too bad. I have seen so many pages shut down, a lot of pages shut down, because people are sharing too much knowledge. They're sharing too much concrete information that people are going out doing. And for that reason, they are shutting down the pages. But I try to stay on that thin line, to share enough information that spark you, the viewers, you, the people, to go out there and do your own due diligence and then take your action. I am not here to handhold nobody. At the end of the day, you still have to do your own due diligence to ensure that what you're doing is fitting to your needs, is fitting to your comfort level. Because a lot of times people take on things and they don't even know what they're doing. And when they end up in problems, they're looking for solutions, looking to other people for solutions. Because the source of their information is no longer there. And what good is a source of information if you cannot revert back to it in order to assist you to move forward, right? So that's why I try to give you the tools so that you have the information, you have the process, you have everything you need to move forward, to take a step. Not just jump and then I look for your parachute. That don't make it. Is it? So today we're going to talk a little bit more about our constitution that is in place. Even though it is not really a constitution, it is enforced as a constitution. So we are going to leave that as that when it comes to the public. Those of you who know, you know. But there are a couple of important things that people are still not getting. So we're going to deep dive into what some of these things mean and why we take the position that we take, right? So we're gonna go first. We're gonna start off today's live by saying, for the class members who are here, those who actually come to class, big up on yourself, laughful always. Continue learning, continue doing. Now, many of us have been taking action in the private. So big up on yourself same way. Bobo City, greetings, lawful, up there. So, without further ado, we still have what? 3 minutes? Alright, so we're going to wait for the late bird them come in, because I always tell you, get your pen and your paper ready. Get your recording device. If you're not a signatory. If you are a signatory, you already have access to the replays. You have access to the back end of the website. You have access to the restricted areas of the website. Those of you who signed up last time, you should now have your account so you can log in and you can replay the videos, the TikTok lives, and you can see what we've been talking about. You also have access to other information that are not available to the people who don't find the time yet to become a signatory. The public declaration, right? And there were a lot of questions. I had to make 2 videos to clarify what exactly that public notice was, and it had to be out there for those who wish to actually Kem Wagwan, big up yourself. Lawful. Yeah, the public notice is there for everybody. Alright? And if you recorded your own public notice and put it on your page, in case you did not realize, TikTok is a public publishing platform. It is an international notice platform. So that means that if you post something on TikTok, it is legally a public notice. It can be used in a court of law. It can be used in legal scenarios. This is why all of these agencies love to ask for your social media handle, your social media login. They want to access your private information because it is legally acceptable, because it is public notice. That is the only thing they don't tell people, that they are posting things publicly for free. The only problem is you cannot really post documents on TikTok, right? You can post screenshots and things, but you can't really post documents. So that is one little downfall, but not much of a downfall. It is legally astute enough where you can make your own voice declarations, your own voice public notices, and it can be considered public notice to everybody. The officials, the agents, the agencies, the individuals, everybody, right? Because it is of a public nature where everybody is have access to it. So we dropped that, and there are a lot of people who reposted it to their page, a lot of people who posted their own. They're gonna get the declaration and then put it on them page, then put the screenshots. Big up on yourself, because you see, when the time comes, and the time will come, it is going to be the declaration that you made in public that allows you to be protected from atrocious activities. So those of you who took action, big up on yourself. Lawful, always. We stay within the confines of the law because it is the law that either protect you or break you. Yes, Facebook and IG is considered a public publishing platform. All social media is considered a public publishing platform. It can be used as a public notice space, right? But your social media has to be set to public and not private. That is the reason you have the public and the private thing. You have the option of locking the page private, which means that it would not be legally accessible or acceptable in court, especially if you object to it. And you have the unlocked side, the public side, where you say, okay, everything open up. You see? So that is the reason why you have those two delineations between the public and the private when it comes to social media: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. The ones that delete things after a while, like Snapchat. I've never really used Snapchat, but Snapchat is not a publishing platform. That is why they allowed the post to be deleted, right? So something like that, where things are automatically deleted, it is not considered a publishing or a public platform for legal notices and so forth. All right, so the time has come. Let us begin class. If you don't have a pen and your paper, I said this many times, especially if you're not a signatory, grab something you can write with, because we're not going to repeat a lot of things. See? So, you want to learn something about Jamaican law? Let's go. So today we're going to jump over to the constitutional framework we call the Constitution of Jamaica, Order in Council 1962. And that is where our class begins today. So let us jump over to the computer. Zine. All right. So we are going to bring up on screen Chapter 3, the chapter or the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Zine? All right, cool. All right, Rand, big up yourself. Welcome. So, today we're talking about fundamental rights and freedoms, and I'm going to point out a few things that you may not have been aware of, or you may have overlooked, or maybe you didn't even see this document before, because I know a lot of people in Jamaica have never seen the Constitution. They've never seen the framework of the Constitution that should have been modified and put in place properly by the people, because the vibration of the people have continually been held down. our vibration, our education, our intellect, our drive for actual community have been undermined for a very long time. And the reason for a lot of sharing of this information is so that we can raise our vibratory level. With knowing, it is the knowing that raises your vibratory level. It is not just reading. It is not just saying. It is not just going out there and jumping and marching and picketing and doing whatever. It is the knowing that allows us to raise our vibration. So let us continue. Zin? All right. First things first, when we talk about the fundamental rights and freedom, again, this is the Order in Council 1962, aka the Jamaica Constitution. Even though it is not necessarily a constitution in the full sense of the word, it embodies and it is enforced as a constitution, and therefore we are bound by the principles that are outlined in this document. All right. So the first thing I want to point out here is that you have a chapter on fundamental rights and freedoms. And what are these? Let us go back up to the top so that we are in full context. All right. So here we have chapter 3. Let us zoom in so we can all see this. We have the protection of freedom of the person. Notice it that it did not say granting of the right of freedom of the person. It said protection of the freedom of the person. Protection of property rights. It never said it was granting you any rights. It says protection of property rights. And we're going to go into exactly what that means. Protection of right to due process. Protection of freedom of religion. So all of these are protections. These are not rights. It is just simply telling you that these rights exist. It is telling you that it is the mandate of the government to protect these rights. That is what this is saying to us. So let us go to chapter 3 or number 13. Right? And let us take a look at what exactly this thing is saying. It says fundamental rights and freedoms. Whereas the state, what does the state mean? The state means the government. Whatever power is in place is called the state. Okay? The state has an obligation to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and freedoms. When was the last time we see the government promoting respect for your rights and your freedoms? I can't tell. Maybe you can. All right. B. All persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve for themselves and the future generations the fundamental rights and freedoms to which they are entitled by virtue of their inherent dignity as persons and as citizens of a free and democratic society. And, so it not stop there, so them just don't want to run it on too long. And all persons are under the responsibility to respect and uphold the rights of others recognized in this chapter. Now remember, I just showed you that it said protection of the rights, right? Here is the follow-up. And we only at number 1, you know. We're still there, number 1. We just read out A, B, and C. It says, the following provisions of this chapter shall have effect for the purpose of affording protection to the rights and freedoms of persons as set out in those provisions, to the extent that those rights and freedoms do not prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. What does that all mean? What all of this mean? This means that as long as you are not infringing on the rights of others, your rights are paramount. It a tell you point blank, say the government have an obligation. What is an obligation? Something that you must do. It is a part of your job. It is a part of your inherent nature. The state has an obligation to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and freedoms. Right? So, here it is saying all persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve for themselves. So for those of you who were asking before, or those of you who had that in your mind to ask me, what is this declaration? What is this public notice you're posting on here? What does this mean? The Constitution itself is telling you that you are entitled to preserve for yourself your own rights and freedoms. It never said it was giving you anything. It is right here, 13(1)(b). It said all persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve for themselves and future generations the fundamental rights and freedoms to which they are entitled. So what rights are you entitled to? Have you declared that you have any rights? Have you declared that you are entitled to have any rights or that you are preserving any rights? Have you activated your rights? What action have you taken to be entitled, to show that you are entitled to preserve for yourself and your future generations any kind of rights or freedoms? What steps have you taken to preserve your and your future generations' rights and freedoms? This is why, people. This is why. Let's go back over here, so. Right? We're on voiceofjamaica.com. Right? This is why I say, I make sure, you see, these two TikTok posts, these are the replays. These are actually made public. Anybody can go and go watch them. You go on voiceofjamaica.com and you can go and click on this without logging in. Right? This third post here as well. This is the declaration we posted the other day. Let us take a look. This is the declaration, right? The full public notice. This is why I made this document public. You don't need to log in to access this document. You go to voiceofjamaica.com and it is on the third post. This full 7-page document. If you did not post this document or your own document declaring what rights you have and making it public, then you are in violation of the very Constitution that you may be claiming you have rights. Everybody running around talking about my constitutional rights. I have rights under the Constitution, and the Constitution said this right is supposed to be. The Constitution says you are entitled to preserve your rights. It never tells us it again nothing. The only thing the Constitution does is to guarantee the protection of any rights that you are entitled to as a matter of public notice. So again, the Constitution here, we're at section 13(1)(b). It says, all persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve for themselves and future generations the fundamental rights and freedoms to which they are entitled. Okay? So if you did not declare that you have any rights, I am sorry to say, but you don't have any. You don't have any. When you're going to court making contention, you're getting a lawyer trying to make constitutional claims. And if you don't have a violation of the Constitution itself, you're out of luck. When you get violated, this is why many people get off. This is why many people don't get charged with a crime. When you have individuals in public office, public servants violating you, and you can't do anything about it. Them a get away. Why are they getting away? Did you preserve for yourself and your future generations any fundamental rights and freedoms by making it public? See, you have a free document right here, 100% free, on voiceofjamaica.com. The third post, as of today, it is the third post on the page. A 7-page document that is generic enough that you can use as your public notice. You can see what rights are being claimed here. It is open to everybody. 100% open. If you don't declare your rights, if you don't put them in the public, unfortunately, you have not declared that you have any rights. That is the first thing. If this is making sense, drop something in the chat. Drop something in the chat if this is making sense to you. The constitution, or the framework in place that we use as a constitution, in section 13, 1B, again it states, all persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve. What does entitled mean? It means that you can go out and you can get something. You're entitled to it. But entitlement means that what? It requires action. An entitlement is not something where you sit down and it happened for you. It requires that you take action. All persons in Jamaica are entitled to preserve for themselves and future generations the fundamental rights and freedoms to which they are entitled. So if you're still thinking about making your public notice, here is your wake-up call. Okay? And we literally just start the live. We still have more. We still have more to go. And this is just the beginning. One time I tell you, say, come a class, you think a joke thing? You think a gimmicks? This is just the basics, people. This is just the basics. This is why we have the signatories. This is why we have the signatories for voiceofjamaica.com. Why? Because it's only for people who are ready to take action. Action is not necessarily going out there picketing and marching and all them something there. That is not what action is all about. Action is just doing something. Action is doing anything. Writing a declaration, reading, posting something, making something public, writing a legal document, putting people on notice, sending off a letter. All of those things are action. It does not mean you have to be confrontational, because you don't have to. You have the power without being confrontational. You just don't know it. That is one of the problems we have. Lack of intellect. But we're going to change that. Let us get back to our constitution, or what we like to call our constitution. All right. So we just get past the first part, the fundamental rights and freedoms, right? Number 1. Let's go down. We're going to skip around a little bit. Or we shouldn't. Let's not skip around. Section 3.2 or 13.2. Right? 13.2 says, subject to sections 18 and 49. I wonder why they list these sections, 18 and 49. But we're going to get to it shortly. Subject to sections 18 and 49 and to subsections 9 and 12 of this section, and save only as may be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. We're going to get back around to this, demonstrably justified. This chapter guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in subsections 3 and 6 of this section, and in sections 14, 15, 16, and 17. And our favorite section. See if we can zoom in a little bit. Our favorite section. See if we can make this a little bit more visible. Our favorite section. Parliament shall pass no law. How many of you guys hear me cover this section already? Drop something in the chat. I read where I read, you know. Everybody have access to this. You can go into Google and type in Constitution of Jamaica. This is not foreign. This is not something alien. This is plain and as day. It is out there. It is readily accessible. All you have to do is search and access it. Section 13(2)(b), what it say? Parliament shall pass no law, and no organ of the state shall take any action which abridges, abrogates, or infringes those rights. I'm going to read that again. Section 13(2)(b). Parliament shall pass no law. And for those of us who remember schooling, when we have and, is and not a conjunction, basically joining two things together? Isn't and a separation of two completely different things and making them accessible within one sentence? Parliament shall pass no law, and no organ of the state shall take any action which abrogates, abridges, or infringes those rights. What rights? What rights? This document don't give you any rights. So what rights is it talking about? It is talking about the ones that you are entitled to as a matter of you declaring that you have rights. You have to first declare the rights that you have before this kick in. When you talk about abrogates, abridges, and infringes those rights, are you have to say what are your rights? The rights that you have is not the same as what someone else might claim. This is why you have to claim your own rights. All right. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, or a dead donkey in this case. Let us continue. The rights and freedoms referred to in subsection 2 are as follows. The right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right to not be deprived thereof, except in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which the person has been convicted. I can teach an entire class on just this section right here. The right to life, liberty, and security is a blanket right. A blanket set of rights. It is not specific enough in today's society because those in the legal field are very crafty. This actually covers everything, but again, you have to declare that you are entitled to these rights. If you don't declare that you are entitled to the rights, how is the protection going to kick in? How? This is why people walk around and say, boy, I come like we don't have no rights because this and that happened to me. This and that happened to so and so. This and that go on. Well, if you never tell nobody, say you have it. If you never tell nobody, all right. It's just like you have one piece of land. You don't have no fence around it. You don't have no sign, no nothing. Somebody go on there and squat on the land. Now your ball say a few piece of land. If you don't do something about it, what do you think is going to happen? You think magically the person just going to leave? You have to go there and state your claim. The law is passive. The law itself will not do anything. You have to take some action to activate the law. That is how it works in every country. Nobody has any rights until you take action to declare those rights. Okay, that is right. The freedom of expression is under attack. Of course, because you did not declare it. I bet you if everybody start declaring that they have rights, the entire legal system change. The entire, if you want a sweeping change, make people start post, say them have these rights. Make people start put up them own declaration. Make people start post things in the paper. And see what happen. Listen, the legal system is the only thing that is swift, fast, and applied to everybody. This is why it is not taught as a prerequisite in a school. It is not taught in the lower levels of school. It is not taught in high school. It is not taught in college. You have to be a law major to even take the first law class. Law is one of those classes that, all right, look on chemistry and biology. Most people are not going to use chemistry and biology in a them lifetime, but yet still it is mandatory in school. Why? That makes sense? They have law class elective, and it's in sixth form. All right, it's an elective. Is it a requirement? How many students are taking that class? You see, I like information like this, because throughout the years, these things were not available. And even now, it is many times. Anyways, we don't go too far off topic, But again, all of these protections are for those who took action, those who found it necessary to declare that they had rights. So if you didn't declare that you have any rights, no is that, listen, I read from the constitutional document, It is not me I say anything, I read where I read. So if it not make sense to you, I guess you can pass it along. Right? But if it make any sense to you, I am imploring you that don't think that this will always be an opportunity that you can jump on later in time. What does it cost you now to make your own declaration and post it on your page? Nothing. It costs you $0 to post on your own TikTok page your own declaration of your own rights. Just remember that. Those of you who are here and you hear this message, you had the chance right now to go and get your own declaration, which you can get on voiceofjamaica.com. It is the fourth post. See 3 posts up here, so? You scroll down a little bit, and you have this post here, protect your rights now, make your voice be heard. You click on this, and you have a free template. You can modify it if you want, or you can make your own declaration, and you post it on your page. A matter of fact, you can even just take the screenshots them and post on your page. But I would implore you to make your own voice recording of yourself declaring that you have these rights. Okay? It is 100% free right now. So if you don't want to take it, good luck to you. No problem. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. You have the power right now. So it's up to you if you want to take it or you want to left it. All right. So let us get back to this document here because I want to get to a point before we have to jump into our private session. All right. So it says the rights and freedoms referred to in subsection 2 are as follows. The right to life, liberty, and the security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof except in the execution of a sentence of a court in respect to a criminal offense of which the person has been convicted. Now let me ask you a question. Haven't you seen videos floating around where people are detained of their liberty? What is a liberty? A liberty is something that you have freedom of life to do whatever you want. But yet still, you get stopped. You get pulled over on the side of the road. And them ask you a question in order to incriminate you. That is a violation of your liberty. Okay? It says the right not to be deprived thereof, except the only time your rights can be violated is what? In the execution of a sentence of a court. And not only that, it has to be related to a criminal offense. How many people have you seen that are not criminals that their rights have been taken away. Their rights have been abrogated. Their rights have been put aside in the name of so-called public safety, when there is no apparent danger around. A random stopping of a car and asking you questions is not a reason from a court of criminal justice or criminal jurisdiction or any criminal offense to be abrogating your right, to be putting your right aside in the so-called public good, where there is no danger, there is no damage, there is no injury, there is no common law criminal offense. A criminal offense has to have three elements: mens rea, guilty mind; actus reus, guilty act. And who know the third one? Who know the third one? Mens rea, actus reus, and what? Type it in the chat. In order to constitute a criminal offense. And criminal offense fall under what? Common law. Exactly, TikTok police. Corpus delicti. Corpus delicti is the body of the crime. There has to be evidence related to the so-called criminal offense. It cannot just be a ticket. It cannot just be a ticket. A ticket can, all right. If a ticket could be evidence of a criminal offense, that means that you can pay for every crime. And under the Constitution, no such thing exists. Let me say that again. If a ticket can constitute a criminal offense or evidence of a criminal offense, that would mean that every crime is commercial, which means that you can pay your way out of crimes. Does that make sense to anybody? Now, me don't know how things are going, and we can all speculate. But at the end of the day, the law does not support that. Okay? Now, not only a criminal offense, the law says what? The person has to be convicted. Means what? You have to go to court first. You have to go to court and tried. You have to be given due process. Due process of law. One of those protections are down here, due process of law, and it has a lengthy set of requirements. Let us go down there. Protection of freedom of the person. Could they? Protection of property rights. Could they? What's next? Protection of due process. Look how much due process have. 1, 2 paragraph, 3 paragraph, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 paragraph of due process is there. If you were not afforded your entire due process, guess what? No conviction can stick. But first, you have to declare your rights. You have to declare what rights you have. This is why I made it free. Again, for those who are joining, you can go to voiceofjamaica.com. You scroll down a little bit, and the fourth post is a public notice that you can use to make a declaration of your own rights. You click on this and you get the full 7-page document. So you can post it on your social media, because that is a matter of public notice. If you didn't know, now you know. You have the power in your hand right now. So if you don't post your rights, somebody asks, can I post this in the paper? Yes, you can. But guess what? This is going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's probably going to cost you $500,000 to post this in the paper. All right. Anyways, back to the Constitution, aka the Order in Council 1962. You have 12 paragraphs worth of due process. If you don't know any of this, if you don't read it, guess what? They will take it from you. Let me say that again. If you do not know what due process is, go up on Google and go find the Constitution of Jamaica and download it. Because when you get caught up in a legal situation, if you can point out that you were not afforded due process, your conviction cannot stand once due process is violated, because that is now a constitutional matter. Constitutional violations are the highest crimes in the country, so it has to go to the constitutional court, or it has to be considered by a constitutional tribunal. It cannot be considered on the regular basis of the, you have these local rules and local policies and all them something out the window when you say, I have a constitutional violation that must be addressed before anything else move forward. Okay? Let us go back up here, so. We're not too one linger around this, because we have some other matters we need to address. All right. So here we're just there, number 3, right? Let's just go down a little bit. Let us go down a little bit. And let us bring this full circle back in context. Everything listed in the Constitution is in an individual context. When we talk about people, or when we talk about persons more properly, it is individualized. For example, it says here, the right of every citizen of Jamaica who is qualified. When you say who, right? It's usually an individual who is qualified to be registered as an elector for elections to the House of Representatives to be so registered. Right? The right of every citizen. Every citizen what? Is individualized. It didn't say the citizens of Jamaica. It said the right of every citizen to be granted a passport and not be denied or deprived thereof except by due process of law. What that mean? It means that them can't deny you a passport unless them bring you to court and prove why you are not entitled to a passport. The right to protection from torture or inhumane or degrading punishment or other treatment as provided in subsections 6 and 7. The right to freedom of the person, individualized again. The protection of property rights. Property rights are usually by what? Individual. The right to due process as provided for in section 16. The right to freedom of religion as provided in section 17. These are individual rights that can be claimed. It is no blanket thing. That's why one time people say, me think the Constitution applies to everybody. It only applies to those who claim the rights. You never claim the rights, it does not apply to you. Number 6, no person, again, it talks about an individual. No person shall be subjected to torture or inhumane or degrading punishment or other treatment. Again, individualized. Individualized. No. That means that you can't make a declaration for someone else. You have to make a declaration for you. Exactly, Kimar. You can't do nothing for nobody else. The only time you may do something for another individual is if it's your child and the child is not of age of majority. That is the only time you can do something for someone else, when you are the legal guardian or the lawful guardian of an individual who has not attained the age of majority. All right? So now that you overstand that, it is up to you whether or not you want to claim any rights and publicize that. Make it public notice. Now, we're going to go down to section 48. For those who know, you know. This is section 48 of the Order in Council 1962. It says powers to make laws. Remember, we just covered in section 13.2b, it says Parliament shall make no laws, right? It says, 48.1 says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. Kimara said, I see why they don't teach about this in public, about public law in school. Exactly. Subject to the provisions of this constitution. What does this mean? It means that everything above this takes precedence first. So if it's a Parliament shall make no law, right? This is within the context of that. Subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. So the peace of the government of Jamaica, the order of the government of Jamaica, and the good government of Jamaica. We had several people contesting this before. But here is the evidence that that is what this means. I'm going to show you within the context of this document and also the context of the High Court in England. Remember, we're at section 48. And we just read section 1, or subsection 1. It says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. Number 2, without prejudice to the generality of subsection 1, and subject to the provisions of subsections 3, 4, and 5. Which means what? When it says, subject to the provisions of subsection 3, 4, and 5, it means that you have to take 3, 4, and 5 into context. Section 1 is subjected to. It has to be in context with 3, 4, and 5 below. Right? Of 3, 4, and 5 of this section, Parliament may by law determine the privileges, immunities, and powers of the two houses and the members thereof. What does this mean? This is the confinement of the powers of Parliament. The powers of Parliament cannot be extended outside of the privileges, immunities, and powers of the two houses and members thereof. We are reading here. We are not inferring or using suppositories or opinionated conjecture. We are reading from section 48 of the Constitution of Jamaica. 3. No civil or criminal proceedings may be instituted against any member of either house for words spoken before or written in a report to the house of which he is a member, or to a committee thereof, or to any joint committee of both houses, or by reason of any matter or thing brought by him therein by petition, bill, resolution, motion, or otherwise. What is this saying? You can lock them up for what they do in a parliament, as long as it is within their own cabinet or their own house. 4. For the duration of any session, members of both houses shall enjoy freedom from arrest for any civil debt, except a debt the contraction of which constitute a criminal offense. So as long as they are not committing criminal offenses, any debt that results from their actions, they are free from such a debt. They cannot be arrested for incurring debt while they are in session. 5. No process issued by any court in the exercise of its civil jurisdiction, it never said criminal, civil jurisdiction, shall be served or executed within the precincts of either house while such house is sitting, or through the president or speaker, the clerk, or any officer of either house. So what has this been talking about? Has this been talking about the people of Jamaica, the persons of Jamaica, or anything other than the government? Because from what I can see, all it is talking about is the government of Jamaica. The two houses and parliament. That's all I am seeing here. So the context of making laws is within the two houses of parliament and parliament. So if section 1 of 48 says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. There is no mistaking the context, because subsection 2 here tells you you have to subject it to 3, 4, and 5 below. So this is the context. All of these bills, resolutions, acts of parliament, and all these other things that they are putting out, all of these regulations and acts have nothing to do with you, the regular people out at door. But nobody have been raising this when they are convicted. All right. How do we prove any of this? How do we? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It tells you right there. You don't need any inferences from the outside. But let us see what the court in Leonage versus the Queen has to say. You can look this up on Google. You can look this up on Google. Let me zoom in so you can see the name. Leonage, Liyanage versus the Queen, bracket PC. So you can go and look up this case in Google and you can find it. When you find the case, you can go down to section 266 and we can read in context. Let me see if I can. All right, the words are kind of small. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to try my best to bring it up as much as possible. All right. So, what did the court have to say? The court says, a matter of fact, let us read in context, because we don't just want to pick out one section like Christian and run around with one little word. See? And no disrespect to any religion, we just know that Christians love take out one sentence or one little paragraph and then run with it instead of reading the whole book or reading the whole chapter. So we're going to read in a context. In the Proclamation of 1799, the civilized parts of the principles of Roman Dutch law were allowed to continue. Reliance was strongly placed on the well-established principles of the Roman Dutch law as to what in truth law and legislation was. So you see what they're deliberating? What in truth law and legislation was. How many people thought law was legislation? Keep listening. The first principle being that there could be no law which was not of general application or of application at least to groups of people in similar circumstances. Similar circumstances. You mean the people who declare them rights? All right. So that a law against an individual alone operating with special importance against an individual alone was not a law at all. Want to hear that? A law that applies to an individual alone is not a law. Voigt's commentary on Pondex, Volume 1. Pereire's Law of Ceylon. This is from 1799 them draw from, you know. So you know, say, I don't know, little. And them something, ancient something them a draw upon. So things where you find in the law, it is not new. It is just revamped. Okay? Usually after war or some kind of important worldly event. even if it was very difficult to find a complete and comprehensive definition of what kind of legislation would be contrary to fundamental principles. In the average case, it was extremely easy to decide in accordance with the accepted notions of justice on which side of the line a particular kind of legislation fell. And they're citing the case Ridge versus Baldwin and Phillips versus Irie, Calder versus Bull. Now we get to the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about. What it say? The words peace, order, and good government in section 29 had been in, and again, this is another Commonwealth constitution they're drawing from. The words peace, order, and good government in section 29 had been interpreted to indicate a very conclusive discretion in regard to matters of policy. And provided the legislative enactment was something which was not against fundamental principles, the question whether it was calculated to promote peace, order, and good government was not a matter which was justiciable. What does that mean? It not have no business in a court. It not have no business in a society. It not have no business outside a parliament. It is not a matter of law to be justiciable. Let me zoom in so you can see part of this. I don't know if we can scroll across so you can see. We can read together. We don't come with conjecture or opinion. We come with law. Let us read what the court had to say together. Because you can see it for yourself. The words peace, order, and good government in section 29 had been interpreted to indicate a very conclusive discretion in regard to matters of policy. So when we go back to the Jamaica Constitution and the section that talk about the powers to make laws, it says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. What does the court in England say? It is in regard to matters of policy. Is policy a law? Is policy a law? Where have you seen the word policy before? When you go to one place and then say, you know, it is not our policy to do this. You know, our policy says this, our policy is that. Where else have you heard them say, this is our policy? Almost every government agency, the banks, the corporations, right, the insurance company. Policy is confined to an institution. Policy is not law. And I know we say so. At the High Court in England I say so. Policy is not justiciable. It is not a matter which was justiciable, so them not have no business in a court. Watch ya. TikTok challenge me. I see if I am still here when time they attack. Alright. So, if what we have been subjected to is a matter of policy, right? Because Parliament can't pass no law, you know. The Constitution done says already. They can only pass things related to the good government, peace and order of the government of Jamaica. Big up Mr. Don, wagwan. Lawful. Always. Now, if we have section 48(1) here saying, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. And this is only in relation to policy, as the courts have declared. Then what have we been subjected to? We have been subjected to what's called the color of law. Something that look like law, it smell like law, it is enforced as law, but it is not law. We have been subjected to policy all this time. We have been subjected to color of law. I'm going to let out another cat out of the bag. I can't really show that one up on screen because the last time I show it, them restrict the live. I showed a blacked out version of my driver's license one time. And we were talking about the details on the license. This is why they force you to get a driver's license. Because on the top of the license, pull out your license. Pull out your license and let us talk about something there. Do I have mine right here? How am I doing it? Pull out your license and make we talk about something. See? I'm going to pull up mine because I have a copy on my computer. I can't really show it because I don't want them lock down the live too early, even though we just have a few more minutes. But when you pull out your license, right? What is on the very top of it? What is on the very top of your license? Those of you who have it, tell me where you see in the chat. All right, we got 2 answers so far. All right, we got 5, we got 8. Anybody see anything else different? Now, let me ask you a question. If the top of your license and Rush, behave yourself. Behave yourself. All right? Man says see crocodile on the top of it. All right. If the top of the license says Government of Jamaica, whose property is it? If the top of the license says Government of Jamaica driver's license, whose property is it? So, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. If it is property of the Government of Jamaica, that means they can request it at will. Right? Not my property. I can come ask your feet whenever I want. So an agent of the government has the right to ask you for their property. Does that make sense? All right. So, if I feed them property and you have it in your pocket, doesn't that mean that they can make policies related to their property? Isn't it logical, legal, and lawful for the owner of a property to make policies related to their property? No, Scorpion King, because we requested it, right? We went in and we filled out an application and we requested the driver's license. So we got one. But I know fear name alone depend it. Exactly. You go and you sign for this thing without a restriction, right? You are not realizing, you're not pay attention. You're just doing things because people now get in trouble for doing it. Yo, Kimar, easy now, man. Listen, we don't have much time left. I hope you learned something today. I shared several things with you. And like I said before, everything is right in front of you. It is just the vibration of your brain has been clouded. Zin? And as we said before, come a class. You see? People who are come a class are telling you, come a class. All right. Again, the document, let me share the screen again. This is why it's important to declare your rights. Many things coming down the pipe, but we can't too overshadow and give too much all at a time, because say people attention span very light nowadays. On voiceofjamaica.com, the 4th post is a free document you can use to make your own declaration, or you can simply screenshot the document. See, it has 7 pages. See? 7 pages. You can screenshot these pages and post on your TikTok page. Or you can make a voiceover and you can read the document on your page. That is more effective. Let me say that again. You reading this document as a voiceover on your page, making a post on your page. It is way more effective because you are proving that you are someone with a voice. You are not a legal entity. Okay? Legal entities cannot speak. That is the difference nowadays. How long should it stay on your page? Forever. There is no reason to remove it. Okay? So you have a free document. It is 7 pages. It gives you a framework that you can use to declare your rights publicly. Make public notice of your rights. So there is no mistake that you had these rights and you made them public. Okay? So, there you have your free option. You can use this to your benefit. It is 100% free. You can get it on voiceofjamaica.com. It is the 4th post on the front of the page. Okay? You also have the last 2 TikTok recaps. They are free to access. Those are the only free things on the site. Everything else, you need to be a signatory. Okay, you're going to need an account if you want to access anything else that is on the site. Zin? So, all right, we're going to give 10 minutes for any questions anyone might have. I think someone was about to ask a question in the comments. So you can pick a box and come up if you have a question, or you can ask a question in the comments and we can address them. I'll give you one 5 to 10 minutes. Salute, tell the children the truth. Lawful, always.
Yeah, greetings.
Lawful. Oh, go on.
All right, for that second declaration right now, the one in question. Does it help or hurt if print it out, sign it, and have a JP witness it as well?
It's necessary, but it doesn't hurt.
It can help, but it doesn't hurt.
Correct.
All right, give thanks.
Yeah, man. Scorpion King, what's your question? You can come up and ask or post it in the comments. So, when we talk about these policies of government that are being enforced as law, if you don't gain this kind of knowledge, you start arguing about details of a ticket, you start arguing about details of a conviction, you start arguing about details and details and details. when it doesn't even matter because it should not apply to you in the first place. You have to always get to things at the root. You don't argue semantics. You don't argue technicality. They don't have jurisdiction in the first place. Okay? They are wrongfully bringing a claim. Hey, Kamar, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. That's exactly right. It's a capacity. We talked about capacity before, but again, we can only cover so much on the live. Can only cover so much on the live. So for those of you who are not a signatory, too bad. You still have a chance to become a signatory by going to voiceofjamaica.com. You click on support a portal. When you click on support a portal, you have a form that you can fill out to become a signatory. And that's how you get an account for the website. You also have access to the Telegram group. You also have access to all the resources that are available on the site, additional documents, templates, and so forth. 100% free. That is what it means to become a signatory. You start learning above the common foolishness that you hear on the road. And you don't have to pay for it.
So another question, 876. Suppose you have an important legal document such as this, and it have a say a grammatical error or a spelling error where might change the word, where misspell might change the intent or the meaning of the document or a paragraph in the document. Does it still hold effect, or would it have to be corrected first?
It's still hold effect because it is the intention of the words, It is not the spelling.
Okay.
Right. It has to be held in context when you talk about the law. You can't just take out a word and say, well, this word don't exist, so you have to disregard the entire document. No.
All right. Let me give you a real life example. More you pull up the document and go to the NI. This second document. Yeah, this one. The part where lettered, the lettered part near the end. The lettered part near the end.
When I say the lettered part, I not get you.
The lettered part, then remember you have some with numbers, and then near the end part you have some where you differentiate with right here, so.
Yeah.
All right. D. The power to be a part.
Yeah.
Of a lawful institution. So the example we give you now, like the apart they know to it spell, right? The apart they mean separate.
Okay.
But the I think the intent is apart, two separate words which mean belonging to our apart. You understand?
Right.
Yeah, so me that wonder if something like that. I mean, Kemar should have catch that still, because him teach you reading and them thing there. But may I say, something like that. If it's thing.
So even in the context of D by itself, right?
Right.
If you read D by itself, it is apparent from the context itself that it is talking about inclusion, not separation.
Right. Okay.
So if we are talking about a power, we're not talking about a power we don't have.
Right.
We're talking about a power that we are claiming or a power that we're going to exercise. So if the word apart here actually means to separate oneself from a lawful tribunal, then it has to be taken in context. Does this make sense to reserve a right to be a part of something or separate from?
Right.
So, and again, that would have to be challenged. And even if that is challenged, it cannot stand tell what something mean that you post or that you submit.
Oh, okay.
So in the context of this, it is an inclusive meaning. It is not something that we're saying we're trying to take ourselves out of. And even so, we are listing it twice in two separate scenarios. So either way, there is an inclusion somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Right, because all of these we are claiming as a power. So the intent and the context here is to be a part of inclusive.
All right, then, yeah, man. No problem.
Yeah, man. All right, so I don't see any more questions. We have covered quite a bit today. I hope you learned something. If you missed the live, you have to become a signatory to see the replay of today's discussion, which we covered 3 topics. So, big up on yourself. I have to run. Lawful, always.